Hey, and welcome back to the channel. I know I've been not posting for a while. I've had kind of a rough month. I ended up putting my 10-year-old Labrador to sleep. He ended up having his cancer come back, so I just haven't really felt like building models much lately. I thought I would go over the Kronos One build that I'm starting. I finally got the photo etch parts. It was really strange. They had the model come out, I don't know, was it 3 months ago, and for some reason the photo etch didn't coincide with the model kit, which, you know, if you're not going to do the photo etch, you know, who cares? But kind of the big thing of this Kronos One build is the photo etch. You know, there's decals in the kit that work, and they do look pretty decent, but I wanted to use the photo etch, so I waited for that and haven't really started building the kit. You know, the first thing that I think I had to kind of figure out was the lighting. So the picture you kind of see up here on the screen right now, that's my schematic for my original Kronos One, or sorry, my original Katinga sound effects and light board. You know, for the most part, I'm planning on kind of using the same thing for the Kronos One. However, I'm probably going to change a few things around with it. One of the things that that happened with the Katinga build is I started the lighting, got really busy with work, and took maybe like 6 months off from it, and then came back to it, and I lost my notes on some of the voltages and things that I wanted run off of this board. So I had to kind of reverse engineer everything, and it works. You've seen some of my other videos. The Katinga's done. It's been done for about 6 months now. It works really well, but there's a lot of things that I learned about that lighting kit. That's really my first lighting kit that I built on my own. You know, one thing is to, you know, settle on what voltage you're going to run everything on. Obviously, Arduino boards and the Adafruit sound effects boards that I use, those are typically happy on 5 volts. I think they can run on 3.5 volts, but I actually ran them on 5. So you can actually see up in the upper left, I've got a design for basically a LM7805 voltage regulator, and that basically controlled and whatever was coming into both those boards and the LEDs that were run off of that board. Everything else in the model was running off the power supply, so it was getting 12 volts. So all the strip lighting that was in the Cobra head and the bulb, and then the engineering section, and then the red lights in the whatever you call it, the work crystal on the top of the engineering section, those were all strip lighting from Paragraphics. So those were all 12 volts. They can run off 9 volts. So I have it hooked up for battery power right now, just because I'll take it to an IPMS show, or we have a local sci-fi club here in Seattle, and I'll take it to that. And so usually if I have a battery, that's easier. But it would totally run off a wall board if I hooked it up. So kind of the first things that I'm going through, like I said, is figuring out the lighting, what voltages I want to use, what do I want to use in the warp engines, because those have green. That's kind of a green glow, so you could either use strip lights or component LEDs. So I haven't really decided on that yet, but I think I'm going to run everything on 12 volts and then power down for the Adafruit to 5 volts. I'll probably keep the same photon torpedo effect that I had in the Katinga, although I might change that. The one thing I'm contemplating is having it do the attack sequence when it gets hit with the torpedoes from the Enterprise. So if I did that, I would obviously sync up the sound effects with the lights flickering and such on the rear end of the ship. So, but anyway, this here is the original design I had. I did this in Easy EDA. I found that tool to be the easiest Yeah, I would say it's the easiest tool that I found to do schematics and then create a PCB design from it. There are other ones out there. This was like 2, 3 years ago when I went through them. I can't remember which ones they were, but this one made the most sense to me. They had a lot of customization that you could do, and it seems to have a pretty active user base. I mean, they have basic components that you can add to your schematic, but then you can see over here I've got the Arduino board and I've got the Adafruit sound effects board, which the community's gone in and added, and you basically just drag and drop and attach whatever component you're trying to get wired up to it. So after this, I'll throw up a picture of the PCB I designed. There's actually 2 boards in the Katenga. There's this one, which is in the model base. The wires go up the mounting rod, and then I'm using they're like CB airplane kind of component jacks, and you can get them at electronics stores, and they have anywhere from 2 to 9 pins, and I think the one I used was probably 8 pins. But they're very sturdy. They're mounted into the brass rod, and then the female end is in the bottom of the ship. So, usually when I'm trying to do a model lighted, I don't like to have them permanently attached. I don't think that's a good way to go unless you really can't get around it. If you're taking them to a show like this, Katenga is a big model. It's almost 2 feet long. And so if it's on a stand, you've got to put it in the car and travel with the stand and account for that, so it doesn't flip over and fall around. So I usually try to make it so I can take them apart. So I'll either use a CB jack, they're basically panel jacks, or the other thing you can sometimes find is component headphones parts. So the male-female end of a 2-prong or a 3-prong headphone. Sometimes I'll have the microphone. Those can be a little tricky though. You really have to have a good soldering iron to get those wired up. They take a bit of heat to get them, and they're tiny. So if you don't have really good control with your soldering iron, they're going to be tough. And I found some of the headphone jacks that you find, they're easier than others to work with. But on the Katenga, I used an 8-pin panel jack to mount the ship, and then the wiring from this PCB goes up mounting rod through that jack, and then inside of the model there's a little distribution board that just kind of keeps everything cleaned up and attached in the model, and that feeds out to the various parts of the ship. So if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do it better now because I know what I'm doing a little more. But the fun part about this stuff is you really don't have to be an expert. There's lots of videos online that kind of go over this stuff and how to use these tools, but none of this is super crazy. I mean, you're really just I have one button. The button is programmed. If I click it once, it fires the torpedoes. If I click it twice, it does something else. If I click it 3 times, something else. And then there's also one for hold and click. So you can do several different things with that button. And based on that, the board knows what to do. It'll either fire a torpedo, or it'll put it into a show mode, where if I'm at a model show, I can just put it into that mode, and it will randomly tell the computer, the microchip or whatever, to run the photon torpedo sequence at random intervals. So if it fires, it'll complete that cycle, and then it'll figure out, okay, what's a number between 1 minute and 15 minutes, and it'll randomly generate that and say, okay, well, it's 8, and it'll wait 8 minutes and run it again, and then it'll pick another number and run, maybe that time it's 4 minutes. So I did that because A, I don't want to wear my batteries out, and B, it's annoying when you're at a show and somebody's got fire phasers blasting out the speaker every 2 seconds. You don't want to overload people. So it's yeah, I just have fun with it. My background's not in electronics. I'm into computers in a certain way, so the programming side makes sense to me, and the electronic side I have to kind of go poke around and see how it works. But ultimately, it's just fun. It's not. There can be times where it's stressful if you can't quite figure out how to do something. But luckily, I'm in a group of modelers up here in Seattle, so we have a lot of people that are experts in various topics, and we have a couple people that are good in electronics, and other people that are really good at painting. Um, it's just we have a good group here. We usually have 20 people once a month, and so that's made it real beneficial for this kind of stuff. You can get help if you need, or you can help people. I've helped tons of people with electronic stuff, and I'm excited to get going on this one. Honestly, when I heard they were going to do Kronos One, I was kind of like, well, I did the Katinga, but the Kronos One, it was in the movie, but it wasn't in it very long. But then, it looked like a really nice kit once they got it built, so I decided to do it. And my goal is to have this done for the IPMS Seattle show in April, or it should be in April. Usually it's end of April or early May. But I had to really wait for the photo etch. That's here, and I'm going to start hopefully working on it this weekend. I've got to clear some space on my desk. I've got a couple other things I'm working on too. Obviously the Round 2 Millennium Falcon, and then I've got the TIE Fighter, the 32nd scale TIE Fighter, that I'm going to try to also do for that IPMS show, which I'm also planning to have audio and sound effects in that too. I want to have basically a button so you can push it, it'll fire the blasters, and then obviously in a show mode, if I do take it, that it'll randomly do that sound effect. So I don't anticipate it to be, it should be a little bit easier than the Katinga. There's a lot going on in this one, and that one's basically just push the button and fire the lasers. So I think that'll be a lot easier. If you have any questions about anything I've done in this schematic, feel free to shoot me a private message, or I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything, but I've done okay. I've figured out some of this stuff. So I will chat at you next time.